Good afternoon and welcome to Today on Bay TV. We are live in Swansea on Wednesday, the 24th of May 2017. I'm Henry Darby Cook and this is Gaynor Morgan.
And we've been joined by Richard Beale, our favourite Rambler, and of course Robert Llewelyn-Jones. Now, Richard, yesterday we heard that Sir Roger Moore had passed away. Was he your favourite Bond?
I think he was, yeah. He's one of the original, wasn't he? And with my age, I suppose, he was the one I saw when I was much younger than I am now.
He was very debonair,
Oh,
wasn't
he was
he?
very debonair.
Remember him, Robert?
Well, he wasn't quite the original. The original was, I do believe, the first Bond film, although they didn't call it that, was called Casino Royale. And I think David Niven, if I remember rightly, starred in that. But the franchise proper of Bond was Sean Connery. And then he finished, and Roger Moore, as you came. And then after, when he finished, there was a succession of Bonds.
So iconic.
Have you ever seen him in a Bond film?
Of course, yeah. I've seen them all. I think the old ones are better. My issue now is they've got too gritty, they're too dark and realistic. I think the thing that Bond should be is kind of that sarcastic and eccentric gadgets and, yeah.
He was very handsome when he was young, wasn't he?
I was wondering if Henry had ever seen himself as a sort of Bond character, and if so, which one, you know? Would he be Ernest Stravo Blofeld, perhaps?
Maybe like an evil sidekick, possibly.
That's why I come in, you see, to sit next to him on the sofa. Makes me look good. But Sir Roger Moore had a strong connection with Wales, didn't he? He was married to Dorothy Squires from Llanelli.
Yes.
Long time ago.
I remember him making a film of the Saint, one of the Saint series, and they used a hotel called the Manor at Maesaicrigiau.
Oh, right.
Yes, that was in the 1960s. And a cousin of mine kept it at that time, so that's why I was able to go up and see the film.
Did you ever meet him?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, what was your impression of him?
Well, that's an awfully long time ago, and he was a very young Roger Moore. Well, not young, but he was a very impressive man.
Even then?
A very handsome guy and carried himself well, you know. He didn't perhaps have that rather sinister aspect which Sean Connery might say had, you know. But
Sean Connery only had to raise his eyebrows, didn't he?
He was. And of course, I think he was quite an accomplished person. He had a good he had a good army career, became a captain in the army. And, you know, he had all the attributes that you could imagine filmmakers wanted for.
And although his marriage to Dorothy Squires fell apart, I think he was quite a lot younger than her, wasn't he?
12 years, wasn't it?
So, but
Something like that.
I think it was perhaps marriage to her that sort of catapulted him to the limelight. But he did care for her to quite an extent in the last years of her life, didn't he?
Oh, so they say. She came back to live in the Rhondda, I think. She was given a house there by one of her admirers. And of course she had that wonderful show in London that she staged herself and was a sellout for 2 nights, I think.
I met her once in the Princess Royal Theatre in Port Talbot. I was a very young journalist. It was quite an interesting evening. She was quite sort of outspoken, but very much the star. But
Just before we move on to talking to Richard about where he's been recently, we've got a great clip to remember Sir Roger Moore.
Roger Moore is James Bond 007 in Ian Fleming's Live and Let Die. Take your seat and hang on.
Silent Templar.
course, great work as a UNICEF ambassador. Oh, we move on. Move out of doors, Richard. Where have you been lately? You're rambling.
Well, last Sunday we walked around the Havard estate near Aberystwyth, and it was developed by Thomas Jones about 200 years ago.
And was he famous?
He was a wealthy person, I think. I don't know quite his background, but he decided he wanted to create a whole series of landscape features. It was at a time when there was the picturesque movement, and wealthy people want to get out in the countryside. So on his estate, he created all sorts of features, waterfalls, little bridges across the streams, woodland areas and so on, and created various walks. There was a gentleman's walk and a ladies' walk, and one or two others. Not particularly long ones, but...
Did you divide your party up into gentlemen and ladies? No. They'd have been an outlier.
No, we did all of them. There's several others. We did all of them, actually. The leader combined them all, so it was about 9 miles. But the features were restored a few years ago, and it's quite impressive, really. It's tucked away a little bit, but you get to Devil's Bridge, it's not far away, and the car park there, free parking, there's a leaflet and information board, and some interesting walks, really.
I think from what Robert was saying earlier, was it your stomping ground? You seem to know a lot about
Well,
that.
I spent a little time there once upon a time. And yes, it's a beautiful part of the world, and the Havard Arms Hotel at Devil's Bridge, just above the falls there. And of course, you have the railway line that runs down to Aberystwyth, which is a spectacular run. You know, it's a lovely run.
Yeah. I think we had a video clip of the Havard estate.
Should we have a little look and you can talk us through it?
Yeah. So here we are. This is quite near where there was a house there at one time, but that was burnt down many years ago, and all that's left are some steps and so on. But you walk near to the site of it. And just around the corner from where that is taken, there's an ice cave. These wealthy people had a place an ice house where they used to put the ice cubes. Obviously didn't have refrigerators, but the best that they could do, really. And as I said, there's a number of waterfalls in the area. This is one of them going up the valley. And the highlight of it is really that one where you walk through a cave, and then at the end there's a window on the waterfall, and that's really spectacular. Wow. So yeah, it was a very interesting day out. There's about 20 of us on the walk, and the weather was kind to us as well, which helped.
How would you describe the severity if someone was interested to maybe visit there?
Well, you can choose to do various walks. The self-guided ones are quite short, so a couple of miles probably, so quite easy. Some of them a bit harder. The gentleman's walk's a bit harder than the ladies' walk. You know, that was the way things were at the time.
Everything's
a bit
changed
rockier.
since.
Everything's changed now. So yes, I think if people go to the site, they'll see the information board. There's a leaflet you can buy for £2. Gives all the walks on it, and really, we saw families there as well, so it's suitable for people of all ages.
Some hostelries along the way?
Oh yeah, on the way back really.
Oh, yeah.
You have to have refreshment at the end of it. In Tregaron we stopped,
Yeah.
Talbot Arms.
Talbot Arms.
Yeah, Talbot Hotel, isn't it?
Talbot Hotel.
That's in Tregaron, isn't
Lovely.
it?
Yeah.
The owner has spent, well, I would say, hundreds of thousands of pounds.
They've modernised it without losing the character.
Oh, yes. It's a lovely hotel. It's really nice.
Tregaron itself is a lovely place, and of course a great base for
And of course, in the centre of Tregaron is the statue of Henry Richard, who was the Liberal MP for Merthyr Tydfil in the 19th century, and was known as the Apostle of Peace.
My middle name's Richard. My middle name's Richard, Henry Richard.
You have to go to Tregaron. Why is his statue in Tregaron?
Well, he was a native of Tregaron.
And then he became an MP.
And then he became MP for Merthyr in the 19th century.
Well, the times I've stopped in Tregaron on the way back from Aberystwyth, I have to say, normally to pick up beef burgers or something, but anyway, and I didn't know that's what the statue was for.
You were probably rushing to get in the bar again. You didn't have time for sightseeing.
But these great landowners, they left us with a wealth of not just great houses, but as you're saying, these little sort of follies and...
Yeah, indeed.
Do you know how they made their money, Thomas Jones and his family?
Well, the product of the area was lead, you see.
Yeah, lead and silver, wasn't it?
Well, lead certainly, you know, and the lead mines of Cardiganshire provided a fortune for many people. Mackworth here in Swansea being one.
And now I think it's the sunshine and the wind for energy, probably.
In the final moments, Richard, what's coming up this weekend? Where are you walking?
Okay, tomorrow evening we've got a short walk around Mumbles, a summer evening walk. On Saturday there's a walk in Llanstefan, 6 miles. and a longer walk on Sunday, which is 11 miles, a Gower walk, that one is. So they're
You're
all
on.
on swansearamblers.org.uk.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
After the break, we're going to be looking at today's papers, and Ian Rees is going to come and join us.
See you then. Welcome back to Today on Bay TV. I'm Gaynor Morgan. With me is Henry Darby Cook. Canon Ian Rees is here, and we've also got Robert Llewelyn-Jones still with us.
Today's newspapers are obviously dominated by the awful attacks in Manchester that happened yesterday and the day before. Something we're going to start with and we have to talk about is the Sun's decision for their front page. I think we've got it on screen, just about to show you now. It's been not well received at all in the country, but especially within Manchester, and kind of on Twitter this morning and on many social media platforms. Actually, petitions have popped up for now the Sun newspaper to be banned citywide in Manchester and for it not to be sold because it's so disrespectful. It's the only newspaper to actually show the image of the terrorist and the suicide bomber. We'll go to you, Robert, first. Obviously, a background in newspapers, and what, I guess, where do your thoughts lie with this decision?
I think the Sun is the Sun. I personally don't read it. I don't subscribe to it. I've got no time for it, really. I find it, I use this in the presence of a cleric, an abomination.
Ian, obviously...
I can only agree, really. I think the Sun constantly seem to make bad decisions, what they do with people. The Liverpool football supporter, obviously, it goes back to Hillsborough, where the Sun printed some pretty terrible stuff, which was totally unsubstantiated, and they seem to continue to do it and make bad decisions. And I just think it's a horrible image. I think it shouldn't be there.
I don't know how he'd police it, but his picture shouldn't be out there.
No.
And I really don't think he should be named.
No, it gives publicity, doesn't it? Which is what he wants, and ultimately it's given him that publicity and a hero status almost with some people, and we don't need that.
While suicide bombers' secret jihadi training, it gives him some sort of gravitas, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point that you make, that it does what Mrs. Thatcher called the oxygen of publicity, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And, you're absolutely right, I think, with the point you make.
And for once, I found myself agreeing with President Trump, where he said he shouldn't be called a monster or anything else, but a loser.
A loser.
Yeah, just to glorify anything he's done. And really the juxtaposition of those two pictures, which is why they're put there for effect, pure in the sense of little 8-year-old girl and evil. It's just... Is that all done to sell papers?
Well, I suppose it's done to sensationalise, isn't it? Sensationalise news.
Do you need to sensationalise it?
Does an event like the one we've just experienced, or any act of terrorism, need to be sensationalised? What do you think?
Absolutely not. I think the horrific sensationalism is already there, but don't give it any sort of continued publicity. Concentrate on the loss that of those so many innocent people that have gone to a concert, not on the horror and the evil of the people that have done it. I think dreadful.
I guess part of the issue as well is so many people don't read the Sun, but because of now this controversy, you then have to go and see what the Sun have done, and suddenly so many
exactly. We're talking about it.
Yeah.
But remember, you see, we lived, you and I, and perhaps you as well. We lived through Aberfan. Well, I was in Merthyr at that time, and I was in Aberfan the day that not exactly in Aberfan, but I was looking from the road down into the village of Aberfan, and that day, all those children were killed in the school, along with members of staff, along with people whose houses were. But I can never remember that it was sensationalised.
There was more respect.
Should we move on to The Guardian? They've gone with young lives stolen by terror. Obviously, after the show yesterday, they started to name the victims and give us their ages, and obviously it was something we all kind of... We knew that the audience was a young audience to see Ariana Grande. Amongst the victims, an 8-year-old girl. Very, very sad news. And it's, I think ISIS have obviously claimed this, and have, I think, in their claiming of it, said we were wanting to kill your children towards the Western world.
Could I ask you, in your pastoral capacity, how would you cope? Let's imagine that some of these children, or young people, perhaps I should call them, were part of your parish. How would you go? How would you perhaps go about?
With the families?
With the families, yes, in the pastoral capacity.
I think simply being there. I don't think there's words you can say. I really don't. Any words would sound glib and trite and just pointless. You know, I think just being there and holding their hand, just listening, crying with them maybe, you know, it's just literally, I don't think there are words you can offer which will ever console them, will ever comfort. You know, that's notwithstanding Christian beliefs which we put, but I think that still doesn't take away the hurt that they're going to feel at that moment.
That would, you know, that would be no aid to you in that role, would it? Having something like that.
The newspapers, you mean the Sun newspaper?
It wouldn't, particularly that one. You know, putting it next to the person that had done it would be horrific. And I think parents would deal with it differently, I'm sure, but all would be the same in just wanting someone to be with them, without any words, without anything clever being said. But yeah, I think holding hands in a way is all you can do sometimes.
Because for all the fine words, you know, we won't be cowed, we're strong as a nation, Manchester is strong. For these individual families, it is the end of the world. You know, there is no coming back from that.
Well, it's something that, I mean, families have had to cope with grief for time immemorial. I mean, those people of our grandparents and great-grandparents' generation, in the 1914-18 war, who, you know, you saw the telegraph boy coming up the road, and you just prayed that he wasn't coming to you.
There's a slight difference. Grief is grief, but with the benefit of hindsight, we realise the First World War was largely futile. But at the time, they felt they were doing something. There was a cause, there was a reason. As far as we know, something as senseless as this is very hard to quantify and to accept.
Well, there we are. This is what extremism, I suppose, fanaticism, would you say?
And it is. Senseless is the only word. You can't find any reason why this would have ever been a good idea for anyone, you know, regardless of their backgrounds and views.
I think what they want. Perhaps we should move on.
Yeah, we'll move on now to the Times, and obviously with the identification of the suspect being made to us, and obviously he's linked with Libya, and you know it's now come out that the police knew about him and they knew that he.
But his parents live in Libya, don't they?
Yes.
But they were originally refugees, weren't they?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, and he'd recently made a trip to Syria and returned to Manchester, so he was very much on the police radar. Like I guess so many people are that maybe do that trip.
I think it's kind of easy to say, isn't it? Well, they should have known, they should have been watching him. But how many people do you watch? I don't know how many people there are on these lists.
Is that beyond? Is that beyond their resources?
I mean, we spoke this morning, didn't we, about we either can be in a big brother state or we have freedom, and it's hard to find that happy medium, isn't it, Ian?
There must be a way of watching these people a bit more closely, I would have thought. If they're on the radar, they should be more closely watched. I mean,
but the thing is, we don't know how many are on the radar. We were told recently that 12 events that would be bigger than 7/7 were diffused this year in London. You know, so they're clearly doing something, but they can't do everything, can they? Very sad.
I don't know whether bringing the army, putting more armed forces on the streets is going to help.
Well, a diminishing police force is not, to me, is a great shame, because I think our police force is the best in the world, and so much crime is detected by an ordinary policeman or policemen
working locally with local information.
Working locally,
things,
yes. Yes, it's still a powerful force, and to have lost perhaps as many as we have. And I'm a great admirer of the police. I think they do a wonderful job, and they are the last line now, if you like, in our defence. Family life is disintegrated. Schools have lost the power of discipline. So it all falls on the police. And when there's criticism, then they're first in line. Very, very unfair.
Very, very difficult for them and the army. Thank you both very much. And of course, to keep up to date with the events in Manchester, check Bay TV's Twitter feed.
Next, we're keeping both Ian and Robert with us, and we're talking about last night's vigil. Welcome back to Today on Bay TV. I'm Henry Dobby Cook. This is Gaynor Morgan. We're still with Canon Ian Rees and Robert Llewelyn-Jones.
And before we have a chat, let's have a look at last night's vigil, which I think you led, Ian Rees, in Swansea and Castle Square.
We all here stand shoulder to shoulder against this sort of violence, this sort of division. And we are together in unity, in sorrow, in love for the people of Manchester in this, their darkest hour. I'd like to invite my friend, the Imam, Sheikh Mohsin, perhaps to say a few words now.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most merciful and the most gracious. Today I would like to mention few points to everyone here today about Islam. Islam is the faith and religion of principles and values. Islam is the faith and religion of principles and values. One of the main principles and values of the Islam is the protection of people. Safety of people is one of the main priority of Islam. Protection and safety of people is one of the main covenant and considered as a covenant between us as a Muslims and God. In Islam, whoever breaks this covenant, he is considered as an enemy of God. Not only that, he is considered as an enemy for all human beings. This is not my opinion. This is the statement of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and this is clear statement in the Quran. Another point mentioned in the Quran, one of the principles of Islam, mentioned in chapter called Al-Ma'idah, whoever takes a single person's life, whoever takes a single person's life, he is considered in Islam as the one who takes all human beings' life. And again, he is one of the most enemies of Islam and most enemies of God. What does it mean? We should, all Muslims and non-Muslims and people of other faith, stand against him. The final point, we as Muslims, we suffer like other human beings. We suffer from the media, we suffer from the propaganda against us and against all Muslims. And we all know the aim of this propaganda is to divide communities. And myself as an Imam of Swansea University Mosque and one of the leaders of the Muslim community in Swansea, I promise you all, and we give all our covenant to keep our work and to carry on our relationship with other communities and to stop any division between other communities. Finally, Islam calls for justice, and we as Muslims would like to call the authority and the government and anyone who is in charge to take these criminals, people, we call them criminals, to take them to justice and show no mercy to anyone who is trying to divide the community. And our hearts, our prayer as Muslims with those who are victims, their families, their friends. Thank you.
Very impressive, in a hard call for any religious leader, but particularly so perhaps for the Imam.
Yeah, I think it probably was a tough one. I think it was one of those occasions where there was a lot of passion, but the passion, as he expressed very well and very calmly, was for peace, it was for community, it was for some sort of harmony. I think, I'm not suggesting any good can come out of tragedies like this, but it actually focuses people's minds on what we really want from community and what we really want living together, of different beliefs, different faiths, different backgrounds. And actually it just focuses people's minds. And I think a huge, huge majority of people want peace, they want harmony, they want to get on with their neighbours and whoever those neighbours may be. And I think every religion actually is probably united on that, really, apart from the...
Do you sometimes wonder where God is in a scenario like this?
I think God is there with the people that suffer. I think God is there horrified at such incidents happening. I think God is there sitting wondering what the world has done to create such evil in some ways, to create such monsters, losers, as President Trump said. But actually God's there, I think, weeping probably over what he would want from his creation, where he would hope for peace and harmony of people of different religions, different faiths and everything. You know, he wouldn't want that sort of hurt amongst any of them, I'm convinced. But
this act of evil, it has nothing to do with religion, yet it always comes back to religion.
yeah, people use religion for all kinds of things, don't they? But I don't see anyone can really justify using religion for such things. You know, Ireland, they used religion for years, but actually there was very little about religion in it. And I would say the same here. It's about power. It's about people feeling oppressed, perhaps persecuted, but people then rebelling against that in a horrific way. I don't think religion says anything about that. I think no religion would ever try to justify that.
The trouble is, part of the hysteria in the aftermath, quite justifiable hysteria, is, and the media overkill perhaps, it is to question God, to blame religion.
Well, I don't know about questioning God. I sometimes think that there's a lack of will on the part of many, shall we say, Muslims of the to integrate. I mean, how many we've heard, you know, there are hundreds in cities like Leicester, Birmingham, Manchester, who don't even speak English. You know,
It's not just Muslims, there are lots of other Eastern Europeans, lots of people.
Let's, you know, there is, you know, the other faiths that we have assimilated in this country, Judaism, for example, Catholicism, they've all...
I think we have to be very careful there. I mean, the Christians and Britons went all over the world with the empire and only kept to themselves. So, you know, there's quite a difficult call.
Well, I'm not talking about the empire again. I'm talking about here and now. Where,
we
you know,
went to other countries and took up a similar stance. It's a natural human reaction, isn't it, really, for people to keep together?
sadly, I think it probably is. And I think one of the points that was made last night by a number of speakers really was that we are one, and regardless of colour of skin or faith or anything else, we need to live as one. And that does include integrating, and Christians haven't been great at it in the past either, so I'm not trying to say that we've got it all right and they've got it wrong. It's not that at all, but I think it's a lesson for all of us that we need to integrate, to be much more together, to be much more of a community rather than separate.
Whether education comes into it. Your education would be much different from ours, where Christianity was the one faith. You would have learned presumably about more of a multi-faith community, would you?
Yes. Very important, and I think last night's a great example of communities from all different walks of life, and coming together and showing that we all can be one. How important is it, Ian, to have a vigil? Obviously, many cities in the UK, we all banded together last night and saw.
Yeah, I think a vigil is very important. I think the purpose of a vigil has to be considered, and it's very difficult to do that, particularly doing something at such short notice, which these things inevitably are.
And when feelings are so strong.
Yeah, that's right. And I think a vigil needs to offer time for just reflection. I don't think it's really a time for a political rant. It's a time for just reflection on serious issues which are happening all around the world day by day, which may be part of what happens here then. But it's a time to just take stock, to reflect and just think, what are we doing to build community? What are we doing to build harmony in our society? And I think that's a huge challenge for Muslims, but it's a huge challenge for Christians and everyone else as well, to work out what we're doing to build community.
Does it help? Does a vigil help? Or is it just a nod to... Well...
I think a vigil just brings people together, and I think coming together has a strange effect on people sometimes for things, and just you have the chance to say things that you feel, or just to spend time in quiet. I think in church we get people coming in to light a candle, and they'll have been doing that. We've got a prayer book where people write prayers. There's quite a number for Manchester, and people in Manchester, people want to come in and light a candle. They want to come in and think about it and just sit quietly, I think. And I think that's important, the sitting quietly and just reflecting changes people in a way, because it makes you think, what am I doing to make the world a better place? And we can all do it in a very small way. Where none of us are incapable of making the world better, even by ourselves.
Well, the Bible tells us, doesn't it? Be still and know that I am God.
Yes, well, thank you both. We'll be talking about this tragically for a long time to come. Now, in the clip of the vigil we showed, we saw a few of the candidates for the general election. So we need to show a list of the other candidates who just know who we've got here in Swansea West.
After the break, we're going to invite Bev Evans to the sofa, and we're going to be talking exam stress as we enter exam week.
Welcome back to Today on Bay TV. I'm Gaynor Morgan, this is Henry Darby Cook, and we've been joined by Bev Evans. It's the A-level season, isn't it? And Robert Llewelyn-Jones has stayed with us because in a former life you were a teacher, weren't you?
A penance, yeah.
So, Bev, we're talking A-levels and other options, I guess, is probably a fair way to put it, isn't it? Do you want to tell us maybe your role first and what you do, and then...
Yes, fine. So I'm Head of Admissions and Recruitment for the College of Arts and Humanities at Swansea University. For those who are not sure what Arts and Humanities is, it's subjects like English, history, politics, languages, classics. So really it's a case of like we look at all of those subjects and offer degrees in those areas.
Great.
So this is sort of your busy period, is it?
Yeah, it's always busy.
And then when the results come out, does it get even more manic?
Yes. So we never have vacation in August. We all have to stay and work in the university. I suppose in a way, today I was going to say like students are studying their A-levels at the moment, and really that's what they should be focusing on. They will have gone through visiting universities and making their choice of where they want to go and what they want to study, but really they have to focus on their exams or their assessment that they're doing now to achieve those grades that have been predicted to allow them to get into university. So for parents and prospective students who are in the middle of the A-level or the BTEC or International Baccalaureate, this is a really important time to stay calm and think about, concentrate on your A-levels and then the next step.
The trouble is, it's so full on from, are they O-levels now, GCSEs or whatever they're called?
GCSEs.
Yeah, GCSEs, from that stage, right through your first year sixth form these days, it's not the sort of relaxed year it once was. It's all full on. You wonder how anyone has any idea what they might do in the real world.
Yes, that is the difficulty. Like lots of students, prospective students, don't know what they want to do. And I suppose in a way that's what I was going to talk to you about today, is it is a case sometimes students make their choices, they study their A-levels, and then that period after their A-levels, they suddenly think, I made the wrong choice. I'm not really sure what I want to do. So I guess anyway, what I've come here today to say is there are lots of options available to you. I'll probably use my eldest daughter. I am a mum, as well as head of admissions.
So you see both sides of it.
Yes, very difficult. But yeah, so my eldest daughter did this. She knew what she wanted to do, chose her university. She studied her A-levels, and then we went on holidays to France in, I think it was July, and she started saying, I don't think I've chosen the right subject. And you think about all the time that the students spend visiting UCAS events, open days. So we kind of ignored her at that stage. But she got her results and she did really, really well. She got her place at university and she just said, no, this isn't right for me. And I do admire her because she was very brave, because there's lots of peer pressure at that stage where all of your friends are going off to university. They think they've made the right choice. But if you feel you haven't made that choice, then there are options available to you.
But what do you do? Because you feel as if you're locked into the system, I would have thought.
The good thing about UK education is there is lots of options. So if you are in that situation, there could be students who haven't applied to university. You can still apply through the UCAS system until the 4th of July. And then if you studied last year and you've already got your grades, you can apply through clearing on the 5th of July. So here in Swansea, we are already open for clearing. You can do a pre-clearing form if you are interested in coming to Swansea or to the College of Arts and Humanities. Submit that ready for the clearing period. Most people associate clearing, I think, with the August 17th results if you don't get your results. But what I'm trying to say today is clearing is an opportunity for you to choose another course if you've made the wrong decision. It's an opportunity for you, if you don't get your grades, to look at another university. And I'll be a mum again here, because my youngest daughter, she went through clearing and we visited a university that she hadn't even thought about before. And she absolutely loved it. She spent 4 years there. So both of my daughters have not gone down the traditional route. But they both have done really well, and they were really happy where they studied.
That's key to it, isn't it?
Yes, they were very happy.
And I
Because,
think,
well, I bet there's so many people that put up with it and they go to a university that they've fallen out of love with, doing a course that they have no interest in following.
and I think, Robert, you're a case in point because you switched careers, didn't you? You were a teacher.
I was a teacher, yes, and then I became a journalist. Well, we were, yes, yes. I
But
was.
was it a difficult choice at the time? I imagine that the other teachers would have thought.
Well, no, it was perhaps more the system, how teaching had changed, and what it had become. That made my mind up for me. I needed to perhaps look for a new career while I was still...
Have journalism still the same thing?
Yes, well, journalism offered an opportunity, and it was something I was interested in. And that's what made me change. It was the changing face of education.
Yes, of course, that's another aspect. When we were young, you would have gone into a career for life. Now people change two or three or more times.
But of course, universities when I was young, I mean, people went to university, a very select few went to university because of the nature of the grammar school system in Wales, the A-level examinations that were in existence then. The WJEC was regarded as one of the finest examining bodies in the UK.
I'm not sure if the pendulum hasn't swung too far. What do you think, Bev? More people should be sort of persuaded to go to university?
I think university it's not just about enhancing your learning, it's also about kind of studying with different cultures. There's like with us in arts and humanities, we're aware we're not naturally vocational, like medicine or law or whatever. So when our lecturers teach their courses, they bring in employability to those courses to ensure that our graduates learn more about the subject area, but also there's options of week of work, internships, so it prepares. Universities are very different. I worked in Swansea for 22 years, and it's very different now in the sense of we are preparing our students to go out into the world and have good careers. And we work really closely with employers and organisations to find out what they look for in a student and bring that into our study, as well as into options, extracurricular options.
But people are being prepared.
Yes. So I think...
Was that your experience, Henry? You've been to university relatively.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and the life skills, I think, so for so many people, it's the first time you leave home and it's the first time you suddenly have X amount of pounds in your bank account, and it's learning how to manage that and deal with people and bills and everything in between and getting up on time for things. And yeah, it's definitely something I'd say definitely do for all of that and everything.
And you probably know, like my daughters as well, it's like you make friends for life and you may come from different countries. I always say that universities are like small villages in a way, because once you come to the university, there's so much going on, there's so many different cultures, there's so many different experiences, but you do make friends from all around the world. And
that's
they will be your
friend. More important now than ever.
Yes,
in the events of this week, it's so important to get out of your little bubble, as it were.
It is, yeah. And like you were talking earlier, and this is why, in a way, I wanted to say that if things do go wrong, you do have choices. You know, it's like I always say when I talk to international students, I always say like life is like a book made up of many chapters. Going to university is a new chapter. But sometimes you plan your chapter and it doesn't work out the way that you want, and you have to go back and rewrite it. And I'm sure, like parents and relatives, they need to bear that in mind if they've got somebody in.
Thank you, Bev. Thank you so much. So all is not lost if you're on the wrong path.
No, lots of
concentrate
opportunity.
on the exams for now.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks to all our guests today and our viewers watching us, especially those who are tuning in for our Talking Pictures afternoon matinee. It's coming up next on Bay Today. And today it's the 1955 drama Summertime, starring Katharine Hepburn.
It's a good one. And with that, we'll see you tomorrow.